From Rotterdam, I wish you all a very good afternoon. My name is Patrice van der Heijden, and I'm General Manager of the Finnish-Dutch Chamber of Commerce and the Norwegian-Dutch Chamber of Commerce. On behalf of my colleagues of the Swedish Chamber of Commerce in the Netherlands and the Danish-Dutch Chamber of Commerce, the 4 Nordic embassies, the Nordic Council, and our cooperating partner Mission C, I'd like to welcome you for our second webinar in the series Nordic Talks Sustainable Fashion Days 2020. Last week, in our first webinar, we spoke about green fashion, green future. Is the future of fashion green? This week's topic is consumers turning green, demand-driven fashion change. We received more than 300 registrations for this webinar. We have 6 speakers from 5 countries and 1 fantastic moderator, Andrea Orzach. Before I hand over to her, please know that your camera is off and you are all muted. But please feel free to use the chat box and the Q&A during the webinar. I wish you a lot of fun. Please enjoy the upcoming 1.5 hours. And now I like to call in Andrea. Andrea, are you ready to take over?
I'm ready to take over. Many thanks, Patrice. And thank you so much for the recap of the first one. Indeed, second webinar, how exciting. And also, September is generally speaking quite the month of fashion. That's literally when so many brands are releasing their lookbooks just so we can get a sneak peek onto their new collections. That's the month when so many fashion weeks are happening. And here in the Netherlands, we are actually starting with the Dutch Sustainable Fashion Week tomorrow as well. And indeed, today we really want to dive through all the different topics that are exploring how consumers are helping to switch fashion towards a more sustainable one. You probably all heard that currently the fashion industry is just not sustainable. It takes way too much resources to create pretty much like anything. One t-shirt, over 2,700 liters of water. That's what one person drinks in 3 years. That's quite a lot. 7,000 liters for jeans. And every single second, equivalent of 1 truck full of clothes is either burned or goes to a landfill. So such a waste. as for good news, we see more and more the trend, and I would like to call it movement even, of people changing their consumer behaviors. People are turning more into the secondhand vintage fashion. They're exploring all the different business models, such as like swapping clothes and renting clothes, and definitely also the interest in sustainable fabrics and fairly produced clothes is growing. So super excited to explore those topics and anything related to that with our amazing speakers. And also for all of you who are listening right now, please feel free to ask any questions in the chat box. We will do our best to pick as many as we can, elaborate and introduce them into the questions. And we are really hoping that you're going to learn something new, you get some inspiration, and happy to do that together. As a starting speaker, the very first one that's going to tell us a little bit how they do what they do, I would like to invite Anja Buchtig. She's the head of sustainability at Organic Basics. And Organic Basics is this amazing brand from Denmark, pretty well known by now internationally in all the different countries, selling underwear and also leisure clothes. Many people loving them so bad because the company really has sustainability at the heart. I'm looking forward to talking to Anja and get all the insights on Organic Basics. So Anja, big, loud welcome.
Thank you so much, Andrea. Excited to be here.
Yeah, so many people who are joining us know Organic Basics, but can you, for the ones who are perhaps just hearing about the brand for the first time, tell us a little bit more. What is Organic Basics?
Of course. So we are a Copenhagen-based brand that makes underwear, activewear, and everyday essentials in organic, recycled, and low-impact materials. We produce everything ethically in Europe and Turkey so that we make sure that our clothes are made with both respect to people and our planet.
That sounds absolutely fantastic. And how can you really ensure that all those beautiful claims are also correct?
That's a great question. So as we can see, the landscape is becoming more and more competitive, and there are a lot more buzzwords out there, whether that's products are sustainable, products are eco-friendly. So there are many different ways we go about this. One of them being that we only work with certified factories, so that we ensure that from the basically farm or where the raw material is coming from up until us, the fabrics and the factories are certified. So that's one way of it. And then last year we developed a tool that we call the Impact Index, with which we calculate the environmental footprint of our products and business practices, so that we can also take a very data-driven approach to it. We calculate our own impact, and then we also compare it to conventional business practices, so that then we can communicate the savings of our products towards our customers.
I really like what you're saying, because indeed nowadays in times of greenwashing, so to say, quite a lot of brands are using all the different claims to further propel their marketing and be attractive for people who are searching for something that has this buzzword, as you called it, sustainability, in the name of it. So can you tell us a little bit about the impact of your brand?
Yes. So maybe a little bit about our mission, that we want to be a brand that has a positive impact in one of the world's dirtiest industries. So we set out to take action against that. And the impact, so we, for example, only work with organic cotton, and then also, as opposed to conventional cotton, recycled materials as opposed to conventional materials, and tencel, lyocell as opposed to conventional viscose. And what we do is that then we calculate the impact in terms of CO2 emissions, water usage, waste creation, and also chemicals.
Mm-hmm. So you have quite a broad fan base by now as Organic Basics. And yeah, again, you're already by now international brand, available in quite a lot of countries, very popular here in the Netherlands as well. And I'm just really curious, what is the reaction of your consumers? Who are typically those people shopping at Organic Basics?
Yeah, so we can see that our customers are a very engaged crowd. we are targeting a niche that is very much driven by shopping according to their values. So we can really see that when we interact with them, which is basically on a daily basis, whether that's through social media, them reaching out to us via email, or just calling us up, they are super knowledgeable about all the different topics, whether that's the raw materials, the production countries, or also the use phase and the end of life.
Yeah, you mentioned social media. That's indeed quite a channel, especially for the younger generation. So how are you making sure that the right message, a clear message that your brand and the way you produce your items is done differently?
Yeah, so one of the big things is that being a direct-to-consumer brand, we obviously own a lot of the communication and the channels. So on the one hand, we have our own web shop, and then on the other hand, we are also very active on social media. We have our own influencer program, and I think the big guiding principles here that we are very transparent about what we are doing, and we always explain how we do our choices and why we do them in a way, because sustainability is such a complex topic that we are also not wanting to position us or our products as the holy grail of sustainability, but making sure that we are very open about things that we are doing and we are trying to do.
Yeah, I really like when we got a chance to talk together, you also mentioned that it's indeed a constant learning, a constant journey on how to improve. You're learning based on all those data points that you're able to collect based on the consumption trends of your consumers. And based on that, you're able to develop even better products and improve. I'm really curious as well, how do you collaborate with all those different companies when it comes to fabrics, for instance? How do you know which ones are the right ones for your brand?
So you mean when we collaborate with our supply chain partners?
Exactly.
Yeah. So we have a very great product team that is extremely knowledgeable and very experienced in what they do. So on the one hand, we have a few guiding principles that we only want to use organic materials, recycled materials, or otherwise proved lower impact materials. And then, yeah, we reach out to specific factories. We make sure that we get a chance to visit them once a quarter, ideally. That was pre-COVID pandemic, and now we have very regular calls set up with our suppliers so that we have this active exchange going on with them, being able to visit when it's safe, because obviously you can see a lot of things better when you're there in person. Then we have the certifications that we want to make sure that our fabrics are certified both on the fabric level from an environmental but also from social perspective, and just making sure that we partner up with factories that share the same values as we have.
Very well, happy to hear. And also your brand is pretty well known for the fact that your communication and engagement with your consumers does not end at a point when they're buying your product. So what's happening after that?
Yeah. So because we are very active on social media, we are still there after our customer has purchased our products. And we make sure that we also drive initiatives that not only highlight our product, but also maybe the consumer phase and the end of life. So one of the things is that we actively try to educate them on how can they care for their garments, different washing and drying instructions, how can they prolong their lives, so that to make sure that we are also part of the use and end of life phase, because as a brand that's actually notoriously difficult also to be there.
Yeah, I can imagine that. And so obviously your brand is what is a perfect example of a sustainable fashion. How are you ensuring that more and more people can learn about you and buy from you instead of the fast fashion options?
Yeah, so I'd say because we are direct to consumer brand, we engage very much online with our customer base on different parts of, let's say, the entire experience with our brand. And then we also have set up the influencer program where we work with trusted influencers together, where we either reach out to them or they reach out to us, and we share a little bit about our philosophies, and oftentimes we see a great value match, and then we send them a few of our products to test them out, and then they do a review on it and share it with their communities, because what we've seen is that this is a great way to connect with our customers in a more personal and also authentic way, because these partners have been extremely good at raising awareness and also creating strong communities around very special topics. So be it conscious consumption, be it slow fashion, intersectional environmentalism, and then sharing it with their communities.
Amazing. Could you explain just for the audience, what is intersectional environmentalism? Just briefly, what comes to your mind?
Yeah, so it is to be very much aware that when you work for the environment, communities, some communities are disproportionately affected by the effects of climate change, and that we can not only work for the environment, but we also have to work to address inequality and social injustice. So we really need to work at the intersection of the environment and also social issues.
Sounds really great, Anya. Thank you so much for all those insights. Is there perhaps like one final statement or a message you would like to leave with our audience for today?
I think one of the key messages is that oftentimes we are asked, what does sustainability mean for you? Because it is a very complex and broad term. And we have a guiding mission, but sustainability is something that evolves. So it means different things to different parts of our team. So when you ask the product team how they would understand sustainability, they might tell you something different than our partnerships team or our customer love team or our tech team. So I think that's very much the great thing about it, that we are open to this evolving term, and that what we understood as sustainability 2 years ago is different from today and tomorrow. And it's really about taking an activist stand and uplifting voices on our social media channels that take a very active approach to helping solve our climate crisis.
Many thanks, Anya. This has been real pleasure talking to you. And indeed, as you mentioned, it's about just taking the action, start somewhere. And this is what all of us can do pretty much like right away. So big thank you on behalf of the whole team here. Stay tuned with us, and I talk to you later. All the best. Bye, Anya.
Thank you.
And so as explained, sustainability can be quite tricky, also navigating this world of fashion. But anyway, we prepared a poll question for all of you just to find out where do you stand in terms of your wardrobe. Benjamin, can we launch it, please? So perhaps not absolutely all the statements are included, but out of these 4 statements, which one is the most suitable when it comes to your situation? My wardrobe is as good as green, consists mainly of solely sustainable garments, whatever that might mean to you, swapped, purchased secondhand, or really you paying attention to sustainable materials. My wardrobe is getting greener. I want to shop more consciously, but didn't really start yet. Or the last option, sustainability hasn't really reached my wardrobe yet. So people who are really exploring. Really curious what are gonna be the results. Maybe we can wait 1 more minute. Do we have the results, Benjamin? Oh, very interesting. So we have around 60% of people saying that their wardrobe is definitely getting greener. So way to go to all of you. Around 25% of people are quite aware that they would like to shop more consciously, but have not started yet. So this is a perfect moment, hopefully for many of you. Today could be a start of a new you. Then we have around 10% of people saying that their wardrobe is pretty much green. So the most conscious consumers among us over here. And we have people also who very honestly just said that it has not reached their wardrobe yet. So again, perhaps you can learn something over here. It could be a start of something beautiful and a new, more sustainable wardrobe going forward. Or when it comes to sustainable fashion, getting the best out of what we already have is perhaps the most sustainable option over there. Many thanks. Okay, so without further ado, we can move to the next speaker. And I'm very excited that we have today also Wilco Klaassen from Klarna. Wilco is actually the general manager for the whole Benelux, and he has prepared some very interesting insights for us. Because of course, the whole world has been hit by Corona, including the Nordics and also the Benelux. And we were all watching all changes happening. A lot has switched to online channels. And the same goes for shopping as well. So Wilco, can you please walk us through what can you see on your side? What's been going on during the Corona times?
Good. Hey, thanks, Andrea. I think, yes, we have a lot of data and I'm happy to share some. Yeah, I think actually I have some slides I think that we can pull up. And I think, of course, sustainability is close to our heart always. And yeah, my background lays in e-commerce. So I've seen a lot of things happening in the last few years. And like I said, I'm not going to go into a lot of detail of the sustainable fashion itself, just give you more a bit of flavor of what we have seen happening in COVID and how that impacted also especially the fashion shopping.
Super.
So can I have the first slide? So yeah, thank you. So it's going to be talking about consumer shopping trends. So how does the consumer shop and how did it change during Corona? So again, next slide maybe. So I think most of you know what Klarna is or Klarna does. We're a payment provider, shopping provider, and we have a lot of data. We transact about 1 million transactions a day. So based on those 1 million transactions, I've been able to pull some data, especially on fashion. So we go next slide. So what we've seen on the COVID period, I think it was kind of interesting how it changed shopping. What we saw in the first bit was, we call it the stocker period. People started buying a lot of stuff that they needed at home, like groceries and pet food. But actually, we'll see later, actually it reduced shopping on fashion, interesting enough. Then people moved in like, oh my God, I have to stay at home and I have to settle in and I need to work from home, like I'm still doing, by the way, to work from home. And people started buying electronics, but also video games and other games. Then a little bit later, a few weeks later, people start to realize, oh, I'm sitting still a lot. I have to start moving again. So actually saw people buying running shoes suddenly. So people had to get out there and move. Very sustainable, less public transport, but not far out into the world. And probably people started working on their houses, also kind of interesting. Well, that kind of normalized after a while. So actually a lot of things came back to normal. And we saw, especially in what we saw, is that actually sales went up again, but stayed on a higher level online. So a lot of people have embraced the online shopping and it doesn't seem to change right now. So we see actually levels that we normally would see in Black Friday or the holiday season, which is kind of a change quite early in the season. Can I next slide? So what have we seen? And this is a nice graph, maybe, but I will try to explain what it is. It's not just nice waves, but actually there's a story behind it. So what I already said, we have seen that it's this is purely only looking at fashion shopping. So it includes a lot of fashion brands that use Klarna. And as you can see, the shopping went down. At least if you, I cannot indicate the lines, so it's very difficult right now to show exactly the line. But if you look at the pink line, that's actually how many people were doing a purchase. So you see actually that it actually went down a little bit and flattened and then suddenly went up a lot. But you see in the dotted line, actually that's more interesting, is the volume. So the volume is the link between the spend people have and the number of purchases. So what you actually see is that the average spend went down. So people started buying lower cost clothing or a different segment clothing. One thing we saw, for example, was less formal clothing. So actually that stayed lower. That's probably also linked maybe to working from home and people's wearing sweatpants under the desk or something. But anyways, there was a change in behavior. But you also see that actually after that behavior, it went up a lot. So it was a little dip in the volume, mainly because of lower AOV. Volume goes up again. But still the average spend has stayed a bit lower. So the shopping behavior has changed. And that is, I think, interesting to see how it will continue to change. But actually, one interesting number is also from a sustainability perspective is actually very interesting. It's actually on the next slide. It is actually because people, when they buy online, they don't keep everything. And I think it can be related to different things. It can be that you got the wrong size, or it was just not the right color, or for whatever reason, we didn't keep it. And that is normal part of shopping, and it is nothing from our perspective. It's of course nice that people keep as many things that they keep because you have less return flows. So also less numbers on the right away. The numbers are from Europe, if that's on the question. So yeah, so we've seen actually, if you look at the numbers now, you see that actually the trend was that actually since COVID, so March, April, a huge reduction in returns. There are a little bit of few reasons for it. One reason was actually, it's a very simple one, shops were closed. So people couldn't return in store. Because actually a lot of people don't ship their goods back, but they bring them back in store, which is very good behavior overall. But also what you see is actually that it stayed lower. And that is actually an interesting element. So the question is, have the shopping behavior changed? Have people started buying more like, hey, this is really what I need and I know what I want? We also have seen that an other group of people started shopping, like older people that are above 60, that didn't shop before. So I think a lot of factors coming together. COVID has for sure an impact on shopping. And if you go to the next slide, just a few takeaways. One takeaway is shopping has adopted for all ages. It's not anymore something that people do that are really normal use of internet or e-commerce shoppers. An older group has started shopping. We do still see a strong development in-store pickup and also in-store return actually, which is so people go there. And I think the other thing what we've seen a lot, especially of course where we're active, more and more people move to the buy now, pay later option. And that is also linked to that people really want to know what they got. And I think that's an easy one because people are still, especially new shoppers, they're really eager to understand like, hey, what do I get when I order online from this store? And also I've seen people ordering from stores they didn't order before from. So people are exploring more, what can I get in different channels? And the big question, of course, has COVID driven a bit more to sustainable online shopping? We do see indications that actually it might has actually changed, but is it a short-term effect or a long-term effect? I don't know. I can't judge that yet. I think that we have to come together again in about a year time to see where we stand at that time. So that's actually just high level some numbers and some background and just more food for thought maybe. I saw a few questions.
Yeah.
Let's see if I can really.
Yeah, I was just going through them. So let me help you with that, Wilco. First of all, thank you so much for the insightful presentation. Indeed, a couple of highlights, but things were changing during the COVID, and thanks to the fact that Klarna is a payment solutions provider, you have the data, you were able to really capture and tell us the story with the data. So interesting that indeed there was a peak, then it went down, then it normalized again. I also wonder if it's also partial because people are sort of some part returning back to the office. But there is a couple of questions. The first one is, what were the regions these numbers are referring to?
Was Europe in general. Then I think the next question on the average spend, yes, what we see, that's we have not gone in super detail of all the different merchants, also because I can't disclose that, to be honest. We do see, I think actually I gave it a bit away in the second slide on where people actually buy from. You saw that people started buying, for example, more sporting goods, more sporting shoes. So people have gone a little bit more leisure and less for formal clothing. And leisure clothing is a bit lower price than formal clothing. I think less suits go to the office. That's, I think, is an interesting one. And I think the slides after it, actually not really, but I think we can discuss it later. We can talk about it later. And the last one is not specifically from me, I think, often not, but many times not to often pay for it.
Yeah, that's also something we will dive a little bit in the conversation during the panel discussion. Big thank you for all those insights, and also it's nice to see them and as a visual story, especially with a beautiful pink background there. So thank you so much for sharing all those insights, Wilco.
No, thank you. And if there are any questions, remember where to find me. Bye-bye.
Bye. We will indeed record what's happening on a chat, and if there are more questions coming up, we will make sure that they're getting to you, or we will do our best to answer them as much as we can. And after Wilke, I would like to introduce you to actually our big surprise speaker, because that was not on the official agenda you could see on the website. However, it's my pleasure to welcome Mieke Evers. Mieke, hi Mieke, nice to have you with us. And Mieke is international sustainability consultant, currently working for the Dutch Enterprise Agency. And there is even a fun story about Mieke, because both of her parents were working within the textile industry. So she's been pretty much growing up with all the different textiles and clothes. And I think therefore it's no surprise that when they started a project together with the Holland Circular Hotspot as well, writing the Circular Textiles report, Mieke, you were heavily involved over there. And we know that the report is still a big secret and will be launched next Monday. But if you could give us already a sneak peek today, what is this report about? That'll be absolutely fascinating.
Yeah, well, first of all, thank you very much for this opportunity to pitch the brochure. So, as you all know, the COVID-19 pandemic has effect on all of us and has shaken up the world, and literally shows that all our economies are interconnected. So for the industry, for the textile industry, due to these lockdowns, this crisis resulted in massive order cancellations, overstock, and people ending up unemployed. So when a fashion retailer decides not to take responsibility for its canceled orders, all the entities that are participating in the supply chain are affected. And those that are responsible for the beginning of the supply chain, often from developing countries, they pay the highest price. They simply cannot rely on a support system like we do in the Netherlands or in the Nordics. The crisis also shows us the rigidness of the textile industry, which is not resilient and still mostly based on traditional supply chains and traditional business models. So, fortunately, consumers increasingly demand for sustainable, ethical, and circular textiles and clothing. And more and more large fashion brands tap into that opportunity and launch sustainable collections. As you all might know, the Conscious collection by H&M, the Join Life collection by Zara, or the Wellness collection by Primark, often accompanied by large marketing campaigns. Well, in a way, it creates the appearance that the textile industry is on the right track to a circular and sustainable future. But let's not forget that, for example, the founder of Inditex, which includes amongst others Zara, is still one of the wealthiest persons in the world. And that in the past 15 years, right now, we are consuming twice as much as before. So yeah, the textile industry will only become circular if all stakeholders join forces, meaning that suppliers become partners and collaborate on large scale throughout the entire supply chain. Consumers need to use their voice and only purchase those items that are fair trade, produced in a circular and sustainable way. But above all, purchase those items that they truly love and that they will cherish for years to come. So brands and producers need to take extended producer responsibility. They need to embrace innovation and recover the values of textiles at its highest level possible. So the Circular Textile brochure that is written for Holland Circular Hotspot and the Netherlands Enterprise Agency aims to give a push towards this circular textile future. Circular economy strategies and circular business models have the potential to offer solutions for this textile industry, meaning use renewable sources, phase out dangerous substances, increase utilization, and radically improve reuse and recycling. So this brochure highlights some of the Dutch circular frontrunners that are making a change already. We made a selection of those cases that have inspired us and have the potential to be upscaled and implemented in other parts of the world. So hopefully these examples will also inspire and encourage you to collaborate and make a change. So as Andrea already mentioned, the brochure will be launched next Monday during a round-the-table discussion at the Dutch Sustainable Fashion Week. Unfortunately, that's only in Dutch, but the brochure will be in English, or is in English, and you can download it afterwards from the Holland Circular Hotspot website. So, well, if you're Dutch and available, you can watch the live stream next Monday, featuring amongst others Stientje van Veldhoven, our Minister for Environment, circular frontrunners like Loop Alive, Enschede Textielstad, and also fashion retailers like Zeeman and Studio Andalus. So I hope you all join on Monday or download the brochure. And I would like to thank you very much for your time and attention. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mieke. What wonderful insights. It totally had me when you were talking about the need of circular economy being embedded into the textile industry and the overall fashion industry as well. So very happy that this is happening. And I think I'm not talking only for myself when I say we're really looking forward to reading the report. I'm also very happy that you managed to raise a couple of other issues. It's not only about sustainable materials, but it's indeed also about the working conditions, for instance. Exactly. Unfortunately, it's always the most vulnerable people that are suffering. And the consumer trends, despite the consumer that is more conscious is growing, there are still those people, according to the research that was done for Guardian last year, that 1 in 3 young people consider garments that are worn once or twice already an old one. And also talking about social media, everyone wants to look always trendy and very hip, doesn't want to be portrayed as someone wearing the same clothes again. So there is a long way to go. So many things we can change here. So thank you so much. Best luck with the launch of the report. And I'm really looking forward to reading it as well. All the best. Have a wonderful day. Bye. Fantastic. So that was the introduction to the topic we're going to be diving into right now. And I'm absolutely excited to invite our 4 speakers representing different countries. We're going to have Elin Larsson from Resource representing Sweden. We got Voglia, the fashion house from Finland, representing by their CEO directly, Katriina Virtanen. We got Let's Talk Slow and the founder of the sustainable fashion platform, Stephanie van der Zichtenhorst. And we got Oleana, represented by the creative director, Matilda Nordberg. So please, ladies, if you could join me here online, unmute yourself. I see people are popping in. Hi, Stephanie, great to see you. Hi, Elin. Matilda, welcome. And we're still waiting for Katrina. Perfect. So it's all 5 of us. I'm very happy to have specifically the 4 of you here. And there are different reasons why. So Stephanie, I see you right next to me, my window. So let me just start with you. You're actually the one who's been studying fashion. And hence you understand it not only from the business point of view, but because you're also a sustainability blogger and advisor, you can quite nicely translate it also to consumer trends. And you started not only this platform, Let's Talk Slow, but big update was that you very recently also launched a book on sustainability wardrobe.
Yeah,
so
I did.
Very happy to have you on board, and also looking forward to hearing your insights from the consumer's point of view. What do you see as the one being busy with this topic? And then like Elin, I'm looking at you. You're representing Resource here today, but you were also for 7 years the director of sustainability for a very well-known Swedish brand, Filippa K. You were also on the board of Mistra, and they are doing a lot of research, including fashion. So really looking forward to this vast source of experience that you're bringing to the table here today. Matilda, I'm looking at you. We're getting a little bit different point of view here. You are working as a creative director for Oleana. Oleana has quite an interesting setup because this is a Norwegian brand that is still producing the clothes, the knitwear in Norway. So I remember we were talking together and you told me you're literally overseeing the beautiful Norwegian fjords. And your background is indeed in fashion industry, especially with a focus on knits. And I'm looking forward to understand like how we can make kind of like a traditional knitwear more attractive also for the younger generations. And Katrina, absolutely amazing to have you on board as well as the CEO, 3rd generation of the CEOs of Voglia from Finland. And indeed, I absolutely loved when we were having a discussion and you were telling us that it's not only selling items in the store that you do, you're also exploring how to really engage consumers, how to produce in a way that you're not wasteful on the side of the business. And also what's quite interesting, majority of your product is created and made in the factories in Estonia that Voglia is also owning. So very happy to have the four of you ladies on board. Let me just throw out there the very first question. And the question is indeed, how can we utilize all those consumer insights that we have? Is it really true that consumers are becoming more conscious? Do you see that reflected, for instance, in the consumer groups or generally what's happening in the market that you're operating in? Anyone who would like to start? I'm sure all four of you have something to say.
Well, I can start a little bit by saying that I recognize that a lot of people want to buy more sustainably or they want to do better, but they just don't know where to start. And I think that's a really important topic. That's why I'm also giving more information about that. But yeah, I think that's a really important part of it. Like they want to buy more sustainably, but they don't know all the options. They don't know what to look for. They sometimes don't even know that buying secondhand is a good option. So I think there's a lot to gain there, I think.
Thanks, Stephanie. Yeah, very good point indeed. It can be so very confusing nowadays, and especially with so many brands trying to push themselves over there, like we are sustainable, buy from us. Whereas, as also Anya was mentioning in her interview, it's very difficult for many to prove that. They simply don't know the numbers or are not willing to share very clearly. Ellen, I see you're nodding.
Yeah.
What is your point of view on that?
No, but I totally agree. I mean, there's a lot of surveys actually showing that customers do want to, be more sustainable, but they lack the tools to act, and they also have a problem fully trusting the sustainability claims of the brands. So I totally share that picture, and there's lots to be done concerning that. There's also, and just to give you some numbers from the Swedish side, that we had a survey that state that 4 of 5 customers say it's important to buy from more sustainable brands. But then on the other hand, when you ask, what are the most important parameters when doing a purchase, quality and price still is on top, and climate, environmental issues comes pretty low down on 7th place. So there is still this, gap between theory and action.
Yeah, interesting. Thank you so much for sharing. Katrina, how are you looking at this whole insights and conscious consumers rising movement?
I think there is the challenge because the chain of the clothing manufacturing is really long from the very beginning to the customer's pocket, kind of. And it causes the difficulties for consumers to understand the different stages. And the more the consumers would understand these stages, they would willing to make better choices or maybe understand the pricing better as well. For example, like if you're having the €5 t-shirt in the store, and when the price doesn't even cost the raw material for the same product that has made in a sustainable way. So that causes the difficulties to understand how can it be even possible to buy something which is made like that. And I agree that at the moment only the most conscious people and consumers understand these things, and there is still a lot to do to make this clear to everyone. And like Elin said, like the price is still really, really strong measure when people are doing these choices, but they are willing to change, they're willing to learn more, they're really interested, but it needs lots from the companies as well to offer different options and offer information and new business models as well.
Many thanks, Katrina.
Can I add in, Andrea?
Yeah, please, Aline.
Because I saw a question coming from you. Isn't quality part of sustainability? Of course, that's a big part, and it has a really important role to play in terms of prolonging the life length of a garment. And research shows that you can actually reduce the environmental impact by 49% if you prolong the garment's life with double its life length. So absolutely, quality is one important aspect, but it's not the only one.
Many thanks. Matilda, and I think it's just a perfect link to what Ellen just said and to what Katrina said before, because indeed we're talking about the quality, and good quality, locally sourced products are typically also more expensive, and they can be way more expensive, especially when they're produced in Norway.
Yeah.
So really curious, how are you dealing with all those trends of rising, and also with the fact that consumers are still very conscious also about the pricing over there? How does it look like for Oleana?
Yeah, okay, so we've been producing here since '92, and we have had this customers for a long time that's really aware of production, and they want to see and know where it's made, and they want to know that it will last for 10 years, for 20 years, or they pass it on to their daughters. But these customers are a bit older. They're in their 50s, 60s, 70s. But now, the last few years, we've noticed there's a lot of younger customers that's really starting to be interested and wanting to know more about the production, about like how we are working and how garment is being made. And I think that has a lot to do with what you were talking about, both the quality bit, but also from a sustainability point of view. So that's really fun to see.
Yeah. And indeed, it's quite interesting because once something is made of a great quality, it will obviously last longer. And there are indeed even all those different business models that can be really nicely applied. And it can become at a certain point this beautiful piece of a vintage clothing, in case of Oleana, for instance. Whereas the fast fashion very quickly ends in a landfill right away. And I just heard quite recently this like beautiful statement that the fashion industry, especially the fast fashion industry, is really not built to last long. However, if we really consider what are the materials it's made of, it's unfortunately lasting on this landfill for way too longer than we would like to see. Talking about materials, Alan, again, looking at you, what are actually the sustainable materials, and what are the materials consumers should be focusing on when they're choosing the new clothes?
Did you address me?
Yes, please.
Yes,
Aline.
sorry. Yeah. No, but the thing is, materials are indeed important. It's an important part of a product's sustainability, but it's not the main thing. But okay, if we should focus on materials, of course, every recycled material is a lot better than virgin ones. Thinking about cotton, which is a really big fiber being used, organic cotton is far better than conventional cotton. And I think looking ahead, I hope we will be able to find materials that actually come from waste from other industries. We're not really there yet, but we will be. But I think the main thing here is that materials is only one small part of a product's environmental impact. So it's more important to look at where is it produced, how is it produced, what energy sources has been put into the factories where they've been produced. So and as we talked earlier, another really big impact is for how long you actually use the garment. So yeah.
Many thanks. Talking about the factories and the conditions, knowing where it's produced and how, I think having especially Matilda from Oleana and Katrina representing Voglia as great examples. Because Matilda, you're sitting at the place where the clothes are produced pretty much right now. And Katrina, I know that Voglia is actually the owner of those factories in Estonia. So can you maybe share a little bit on what is important for you? Why have you chosen to still produce within Europe instead of, as majority of the companies have decided to outsource the production to countries where, let's be honest, some regulations can be way weaker and also the labor is way cheaper?
Who starts?
Go ahead, Katrina, please.
Well, I can just briefly start here. So I think the main reason why the own production is really good for us, because it gives us a lot of flexibility. When it's that close, we can operate in daily basis with the workers, and we can have the quality checkups in really high level. And because we don't have to transport the collections or samples or anything from far behind end of the world, so it keeps the chain pretty fast and flexible for us. And it also provides the possibilities to test different business models. So yeah, it's been the only option for us for these times.
Talking about different business models, can you elaborate a little bit over there? What business models have you been piloting and testing already by now?
Yes, we've been testing two very, very interesting new models. And both of these pilots were intended to provide more data of consumers and their behavior and interest. And we tested a pre-order concept for our Spring/Summer 20 collection. End of the last year, before Corona and everything, so long time ago. And the idea was to open the entire collection for normal consumers, like it would normally be only shown for the retailer suppliers that time, which is often like 6 months before that same collections gets into the stores. So we wanted to test how to communicate directly with the consumers about the collections in advance, so that we would not produce anything that is not relevant. And the ultimate goal of this model would be efficient, demand-driven production planning and manufacturing, plus a new way of making sales in which the consumer would be rewarded in their commitment in advance. So this would have a huge impact in one of the biggest problems in the fashion industry, which is overproduction.
That sounds absolutely amazing. Can you maybe already share with us, how is it going so far?
So what we did, we offered customers, or we organized the salon fashion shows first and invited the customers, filmed the whole show and opened a different platform in our web shop. So it was only done by digital advices. And we had a 15 euros deposit for the customer, and they were free to choose up to 5 products from the collection. And after choosing their size and the store location where they wanted to pick up, they were also allowed to wish for additional colors or extra lengths or something specialties for the styles. And we wanted to allow the direct conversation between the customer and our brand. And during the spring, the selected stores informed the arrival of the clothing in person. And after testing the garment, the customer was still able to choose whether to buy it or not. So it was really good. And actually, from the production planning perspective, we got really good information, and we actually completely excluded few models of the collections because they didn't interest anyone. And likewise, we added some extra colors in a few models according to the wishes of the customers. also made some few pattern changes, such as like sleeve lengths for the dresses. So it was really, really good for us. But then the customer perspective, we noticed that the long waiting time is really new thing again in our really fast world. Like we're used to getting everything immediately. So people are really interested about these things, but still really careful. But surprisingly large amount of participants were ready to test these new models. So it was really, really good success for us.
Oh, happy to hear, and how interesting, because indeed what you're saying, it not only helps you to develop the collection to a more attractive one and more relevant one, but obviously also helps to reduce overproduction of something people are not interested in, hence a lot of waste has been saved. So definitely the way to go. And curious, because of course also now during the Corona times, it has changed a little bit. There are not that many people perhaps in the stores, but really curious to see like how this business model will be developing further. And changes in consumer behaviors are definitely something we need to consider. And I'm looking forward to hearing insights on that from Stephanie. But Matilda, before we get there, indeed, talking about fair working conditions, producing locally, how is that for Oleana and why it's important to the brand?
Why is it important for?
Yeah, that you're still producing in Norway, that you're actually sitting at the workshop, you know every single person working for Oleana. Why has Oleana decided to do it that way rather than just follow everyone who decided to shift the productions, let's say, to Southeastern Asia?
Yeah. So we were actually back in '92. Oleana started from that perspective. Our founders, they were a bit pissed off with a lot of producers moving to other countries. So they were started from that, we can produce in, let's just try it. We try to do it another way. So that's kind of our core thing. So we will always do it. And it's, I mean, from a moral perspective, it's, I think, good for all of us. We can sell everything with pride, and we know exactly who we have lunch with, everyone in the production every day. So we can really keep track, but also we can have a super flexible production. So we can make 5 pieces or 10 pieces if there's something. We can always resupply our retailers if they run out of medium. We can always send it to them, or even if there's something doesn't sell to their customers, then we'll take it back, put it back in our stock, and then we'll try something else. We'll send them something else. And we'll never stop producing anything until consumers doesn't buy it anymore. So it's kind of a way to give the garments longer life, and then also nothing goes to waste. So I think that's really, yeah, we're really proud that we can do that, and that's because we are here.
Yeah, fantastic. And also
2 floors. We need this one in red. Maybe.
Super.
Yeah.
Super. And also you were talking about indeed that your clothes never really have to go on a sale because they very naturally just become a part of a permanent collection. And only like 2 new collections are created per year. How does it then work? Like, do you just add this to your website, or how can we still explore like what's the overall Oleana collection altogether?
So we keep our whole collection on the website, and then we do 2 new collections a year that we try to launch as a unit, but you can still see everything. So we have a few styles there that's dating maybe 10 or 15 years back. That's really become super special to some of our customers, and they keep buying it. Yeah. So, I mean, it's just up to us and how much stock we can keep. But we'd never want to get rid of anything.
Yeah, nice. Yeah, great. Thank you so much for sharing that. It's indeed a very interesting concept and so very rare in 21st century. So happy to hear that there are still companies that are really putting the quality and fair working conditions kind of like in a family way over there, out there. Thank you. Stephanie,
Yeah.
looking at you, indeed, talking about all of those trends, and you also being an expert writing this book right now on sustainable wardrobe. What is it that consumers actually want? What is sustainable wardrobe? How can you explain it to all of us that are here today, at least?
Yeah, I think that's a bit different in all locations. I'm really curious to hear more about the Nordics as well. But here in Amsterdam, a lot of people get more conscious. They want to buy more consciously. I think what COVID has proven is, or has done, is that because people were working from home or not going anywhere, they really got more aware about what they have in their closet and what they actually need. And I think that's very positive sign. It's also something I mentioned in my book. It's like a sustainable wardrobe doesn't have to be perfect, but it's good to know what items you need in order to complete outfits, or what you really need is important. And I think that shift is going on, but it's still hard. I think in the more urban areas, it's going a bit faster here. Like people are more into sustainability. So what I see is that people want to have a more compact wardrobe, like capsule wardrobe, or they value they value like a more minimal wardrobe. They want to have ease, and that's something we really see right now, and I think that's a great trend as well. And what we also see is that people are doing clothing swaps, or that they're renting and or going vintage shopping. I think that's also great, because people, when you talk about a sustainable wardrobe, people often think of the sustainable brands, but I think there's so much more to that. And also in the fashion industry, it's bigger than the sustainable fashion brands or the fashion brands on its own.
Yeah, super. I would just like to mention, indeed, just to build on what you're saying, that more and more people, at least here in the Netherlands, are becoming more conscious. Really curious to hear from Elin, Matilda, and Katrina as well. There's this organization called Collection, and actually they started Slow Fashion Season already 3 years back. And literally the goal of this challenge was to sign up as many people as possible. They managed to get over 15,000 people this year, and they were able to calculate really nicely how much footprint we have collectively saved. I'm saying we because I'm very proud to be a part of that as well. And also the goal was for 3 months not to really buy anything new. And if you are really about to buy something new, ensuring that it's something as local and as sustainable as possible. Stephanie, how can we actually convince also those people who are very keen to look different every single day to go for a capsule wardrobe?
I think renting is a really great option. And the exciting part is that we now don't only have those companies that do like fancy dresses. You also have companies here in Amsterdam. You have Lena the Library, where you can just rent everyday clothing. And people who are doing that are really, they're either trying new styles to see if that's something for them, or people that indeed want to have more choices, but they don't own the clothing. And I think that's a really nice way of getting your options. And also just borrowing from friends or family is a good option. My boyfriend doesn't agree. I think I always take his shirts, but yeah.
I'm doing the same. So I feel you, and I'm sure my husband would also feel your boyfriend. Yeah, but definitely, what an interesting business model. Rental is definitely offering so many options to so many people, depending on a budget, mood, or what events they have planned. They can just decide like what would really work for them. And I'm so glad to see that more and more of those options are popping up. And actually, Katrina, this is also something we have discussed together. You were also playing around with the concept of the rental for your consumers, right?
Yes, yes. We tested the idea of an easy wardrobe in your pocket.
Mm-hmm. Fantastic. Is there perhaps something you could share with us? Like, how did it work, or what insights were you able to gain so far?
Yeah, yeah. Well, if I just put it really short, what we did or what products, like Stephanie said, it would be nice to have also something, not just fancy dresses or something a little bit more everyday like. So we actually, while developing the product range, we start by testing a work and office wear. So we also wanted to involve these more easy pieces in this experiment, because of course we have the festive collection there too, which is easier to consumers to see as a part of the concept. But we, in addition, we wanted to try if the consumers were willing to rent clothes due to the seasonal changes. For example, a proper outdoor jacket for the winter, or lighter summer clothes for the holiday trips to Bahamas or somewhere. So we tried a little bit different corners in this pilot, and we kept this test running for 6 months.
Mm-hmm.
And we gathered really valuable information during that time. And maybe the first one is that the brand really should convince the consumers of these new models, that they're really safe to use and especially good for the environment. And understanding the fact that the rental will be the new business model in the future, and the brand should not be afraid of losing sales. And the concept should be seen as an element that increases the value for the consumers. And the other thing was that the successful rental concept would need really high quality clothes, because that means only the clothes will last after use for the next user, time after time, if it's made really well. So this model would guide brands to focus higher quality and longer lasting materials and products as well.
This is such a great point, Katrina. And I hope, Wendy, that this also partially explained your question. She was wondering about whether rental is really a way to go if you want a prolonged lifetime of a garment. And indeed, it's going to be only the high quality materials and high quality garments that will be suitable for such a business model. That's becoming very, very clear. There were quite some questions also popping up in regards to mixed materials. So obviously we're having a pure linen or pure cotton. That sounds really great. And also perhaps, Elin, we would love to hear your insights over here. So talking about all those mixed materials, how can we work with them? Are they sustainable at all? What to do with them at the end of product's life?
Yeah, no, mixed materials are still a problem. And of course, where we are at the moment, I think the best way to go is to go mono material when choosing your fabric. But there are several recycling technologies developing now, where you can actually recycle mixed materials, and where you divide the synthetics with a cellulose-based fibers, for instance. For instance, we have one Swedish recycling company that has been managing to do this, and they have a factory already set up, and they are doing really well. They're called RenewCell, and Resource has also been working with them to help them in some pilot projects they ran. So I think looking ahead, we will be able to recycle mixed materials in the future, but we're not fully there yet. So until we're there, monomaterial is the way to go.
Yeah, I fully hear you. And indeed, like, technology is already there. Also here in the Netherlands, we got this beautiful fiber sorts that's capable of identifying all the different materials and getting it really nicely sorted out. But indeed, we need to be first able to scale up this technology to make it really mainstream. And right now, the mainstream, or as much as we have right now, is unfortunately not able to capture with all this amounts of fast fashion that are all over here. Another question was really linked also to prices. So some people are saying, okay, there is a research, obviously consumers want something greener, but price is typically a big showstopper for so many of them. Why are sustainable clothes so much more expensive than the rest, and how to go around it? Do you ladies have like any insights, any four of you or all four of you? What do you think of that?
I can start, and then the rest of you can take over. But the main problem is that today, as a company, it's always easier and cheaper to make the bad choices, to choose the bad materials, to choose the bad factory, production processes, when it should really be the other way around. So, from an higher perspective, we really need regulations to help us make a shift when it comes to this. We need taxes on virgin materials, perhaps, or there are several ways to go. But I think that is actually one of the main issues, to be honest. And that we have subsidies, it's called, right? We subsidize both oil. We don't pay the true price for water use. Dyeing textiles uses a lot of water, as you mentioned earlier, in terms of jeans. So when we're not paying the true price for the water, then you don't really have to be resource efficient in your production processes. So, but I'm happy to hear what the rest of you say.
Yeah, who would like to join in as the next one? Stephanie, we're already having a zoom onto you. So what do you think of that? How to really explain to consumers that, sustainable clothes are currently more expensive than the conventional one, and how to actually justify the higher price to them?
Yeah, I think brands that are really exposing the costs are really nice, because then people will get more understanding of where the money is going. On the other hand, I also feel like some people just want to buy a lot, and you can buy a lot of cheap things, but you can also invest more. And I think the great thing about investing is if you buy a high quality piece and you don't want it anymore, you can even sell it. So I also think that if you invest more in a garment, you will appreciate it more, and you will be more careful with the garment. You will take better care of the garments, and I think that's really important too. Next to that, I think the topic is often about sustainable fashion, but people who want to make a change can also look into other options like clothing swaps or secondhand, and then it's super affordable. So it depends a bit on what people can spend and how they want to spend it as well. But there are options, and there are also some. There are also some more affordable, sustainable brands. But sometimes you just have to look more and search more online before you find them.
Very happy you're mentioning all those other options, because indeed, as you mentioned at the very beginning, when you're explaining what is a sustainable wardrobe, there's so many choices. It's not always about let's just go to store and let's go to this maze and figure out what is sustainable so we can feel better. Indeed, it's about when you're buying something, investing into something more expensive. If the quality is right, makes perfect sense. But also swapping, you can do that easily with your friends, with your family members, with your neighbors, perhaps. And also the fact that you can resell the ones you don't wear anymore, especially if they're of good quality, the value is still retained. So so very important to realize.
I also think as consumers, we need to appreciate the item more. And it's hard because if you're working in the fashion industry, you know how long the supply chain is, and you know how much work goes into one item. But if you're just a consumer, you don't know that. So you just see the end product and you don't get a feel for it. So I think as consumers, we need to educate ourselves as well, and see, like, maybe brands can show more about the process too, so consumers are more aware of that. Because I think that's a really important topic, the appreciation of your clothes.
Very well, very well. And I see Katrina and Matilda, you're also nodding. Perhaps let me rephrase a little bit question for both of you, coming directly from the companies that are producing, designing, and selling the clothes as well. How can we actually reach more consumers with a message that, for instance, your companies, the way you're producing, are more conscious, more sustainable? How can we reach broader audiences? And that's also a question to you, Elin and Stephanie, like, what can we do to ensure that this whole awareness, that this knowledge that we know can be spread to way broader audience than just the sustainability bubble, so to say? Katrina, Matilda, would you like to perhaps start and share something?
For us, it's a lot about like just showing what we are doing, because our experience is that so many people don't really know what it takes, as you said, Stephanie. So we have this factory is open, so we have it open on all work days, so people can come in and then they can see. We can go through the production with them. Either they do it alone or we follow them around and then can talk to anyone working. And I think that's really powerful to actually see the person like finishing a button and see how it's actually done, even though it's done in fast fashion as well, but you're never aware. And then also you kind of inspire the customer to care for the garment. How would you make it last longer? And then we have customers sending back garments, and we save everything, and we keep treating it in a way even after we sell it. So I think that's really also an important message to the consumer, that if you lose a button in 5 years, then get in touch. We save everything and we can help you. We just let's care for the garment together.
Amazing. So it's all about quality and longevity all the way, and even after a proper use. You mentioned 5 years. That's like really amazing nowadays in the 21st century, in this fast life we're living, to have something still for 5 years and have a chance to repair that. So many thanks for sharing, Matilda. And Katrina, how are you looking at what's happening within Voglia? How can you reach bigger consumer base?
Well, I think the collaboration with different organizations, companies, and individuals is very effective way to spread the awareness and reach the audience. And we are also trying to constantly open our operations and a little bit more like educate people and be more transparent, because we will be able to change the industry towards more sustainable direction only if the consumers also they are aware of their choices and actions. So it is a lot of this like educational work what the brands needs to do as well. And like Stephanie said, it's a lot of lack of knowledge. People don't understand how many processes or different phases it needs before the clothes is actually in the store.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for your views, Katrina. Yeah, Elin, Stephanie, would you like to finalize your thoughts here? Do you have something you would like to add before we can start closing this panel?
Yeah, I can start. Well, I fully believe that, you know, the future wardrobe will be a multi-diverse wardrobe with a mix of new and pre-loved things, a mix of owned, rented, or borrowed, and you know, and the wardrobe that can actually change and evolves in different speeds depending on the user without giving us a bad conscience. But to succeed with that, we need to showcase what that wardrobe looks like and inspire customers I think Katrina was talking about as well, to look at their water with new eyes. And here we can really need the help of the influencers, for instance. We need to make it inspirational, attractive, and also increase the number of alternatives. We need more brave brands out there trying out new business models and how to say, making attractive offers, but also that's very functional. Because to change your behavior, it needs to be both exciting, attractive, and functional for you as a user. And then my last point is only being that I think transparency and traceability is really also going to be a change maker, both in terms of that it actually helps customer making these conscious choices, but it's also a way of creating competition between brands. Once you're transparent, you can start comparing, and that might drive change itself. So yeah, but I think let's talk about sustainability. Maybe it can be a natural part of the products or the services, and we have to make them inspirational, and we definitely need the help of influencers to get it out there, to make it something exciting and attractive.
Super. Thank you so much for saying that. And talking about influencers, it sounds like, Stephanie, you're just the perfect one to close this one, because you definitely are an influencer, having so much experience playing around with your own wardrobe. What would you say is the way to go to reach more consumers and to convince them that fashion can be good, can be sustainable, can be circular, and doesn't have to cost the environment and other people that are the most vulnerable one paying the price for us?
Yeah, I think what's important is that we not only focus on the people who are working with sustainability. So it's interesting to have a look at like the big influencers and how they, or if they can talk about sustainability, and if they show and prove that sustainability can be sexy, or that it can be fun and it can be stylish, then people will be more convinced to buy more sustainable fashion, I think. So yeah, I think it's great that we have the sustainability influencers, but I also think it's interesting to see what happens to all the other ones around, because I think we need to convince them to do better.
Exactly. Thank you so much for saying that, because indeed we need this sustainable fashion become the next normal fashion. It's the fashion that's not sustainable that should be labeled differently. So it should be very easy for everyone then recognize, like, am I getting the fashion that's by design already sustainable, or am I getting something that's really hurting others and the planet and just really depleting all the resources we have here? Thank you so much for that. And hereby I would like to also say a big thank you to all four of you. Really interesting discussion. Obviously, we don't have enough time to go absolutely through all the questions. So to everyone who was writing also those questions, so much appreciated. Let me just very quickly touch a point. There were some discussions on taxes. This is actually a topic we'll be touching in our next webinar. So tune in next Wednesday. Over there, we'll be looking into the overall systemic change for all of governments and international organizations. Today, we really wanted to focus on how are consumer trends driving the change, and how sustainable fashion brands can actually utilize those insights to drive their business and find and reach out to new consumers as well. And also there were some questions about majority of the fashion, sustainable fashion, that it's typically kind of like a women's playground. I would like to highlight two brands that are coming from the top of my head. One from Sweden, actually, called Arket, and another one from over here from the Netherlands, Amsterdam-based brand Unrecorded. Really just something very quickly that popped up. Perhaps if all the other people that are joining us, that are part of the conversation, or maybe some of our speakers has some other ideas, just write it down into the chat. And I would just say a big thank you to everyone who joined us. Really hope that you got a chance to learn something. And talking about sustainable fashion, let's start focusing on our own wardrobe. Let's start over there. And I'm really curious how many people out of those two last categories that we had in our call, so the ones that are not busy with it yet and the ones that know of it but haven't really started making the changes, we can move to the first category and to the second category. So it would be absolutely amazing to see more and more people in the first one and all of us being able to say like, yes, I'm very consciously, with the awareness, doing my best to take the right choices. Thank you, everyone, so much. I would like to mention one more thing. We also prepared a survey because we are very keen to learn. We would like to understand from all of you who tuned in today, what is your feedback? What can we improve? If you liked it, let us know. If there's something you would like us to suggest we can improve, please let us know. So after Patrice's last remarks, we will launch a QR code just to make it very easy for everyone online to scan it, and you can fill it up right away. Please do so. And hereby, I just want to say a big thank you for everyone for being here today. And Patrice, over to you.
Thank you, Andrea. Thank you so much for doing a great job again. It was a very interesting and inspiring webinar. I must admit that I have to get used to the idea of swapping and renting my clothes. But I'm pretty sure that this jacket, what I'm wearing now, is in the coming years still in my wardrobe. So I hope that is sustainable. On behalf of all the organizers, I like to thank also all the speakers for today. Thanks so much for spending your time and giving your insights to this webinar. And ladies and gentlemen, Andrea already mentioned it. Next week we have our third webinar. If you didn't register yet, you can still do that on our website, nordictalks.org. I wish you all the best for today. Have a nice evening, and I hope we will see you next week again. And now we can go over to the survey, and please fill that in for us. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.